Good morning. Good morning. On behalf of the National Alliance for Caregiving, welcome to our second annual Caregiver Nation Summit. My heart is so full seeing all of you here this morning. At the same time, I know many of our hearts are also heavy with the weight of these divided times. In times like these, I think it's important to look for the common ground that can unite us in a shared vision for the future. And there's no issue that creates more common ground than caregiving. In an era where so much tears us apart, our commitment to care to one another can be our foundation to build on. Whether we're caring for an aging parent, a child with disabilities, or a spouse with a chronic illness, caregiving reveals our shared humanity and connects us across every political divide. This is a crucial moment for our care community. With more than 53 million Americans rising each day to care for a loved one, we face daunting challenges. But on this common ground, we're witnessing what's possible when we unite around a shared commitment to care. In healthcare, we forge common ground between health systems and families. Medicare's historic decision to reimburse providers for caregiver training services marks a fundamental shift in how we better support caregivers providing complex care. The new guide model is bringing enhanced care coordination, education, and much-needed respite services to families caring for loved ones living with dementia. In workplaces, we're building common ground between employers and employees. Major companies are expanding their paid leave policies, and more executives are talking openly about their care connections, recognizing that supporting caregivers is good for employees, for families, and for business. And at the federal level, we're establishing common ground across administrations. The Reyes Act, signed by President Trump, established a national strategy to support family caregivers that has gained momentum under the Biden-Harris administration. Federal agencies have completed or launched nearly all 350 actions and added 40 more along the way. The Administration for Community Living has invested $22 million to implement the national strategy. And in state houses across America, we're turning common ground into action for family caregivers. Minnesota has expanded respite care services. Nebraska and Hawaii have created tax credits for working caregivers. And just this month, voters in Washington state protected their landmark long-term services program, while Missouri, Nebraska, and Alaska passed paid sick leave measures. When care is on the ballot, it wins. That's progress. These achievements didn't happen by chance. They happened because advocates, policymakers, healthcare providers, business leaders, direct care workers, family caregivers came together and found common ground and worked toward shared solutions. This is what transformation looks like when we stay united. But here's the truth, and we must be clear-eyed about it. For the tens of millions of family caregivers who provide ongoing complex care, these changes, while historic, haven't yet transformed their daily lives. They're still navigating a system that wasn't built for them, still balancing impossible choices between work and care, still searching for the support in a landscape that too often leaves them isolated and overwhelmed. But at times like this, we don't back down, we double down. We must not only protect the ground we've gained, we must expand it. What does that look like? It looks like a healthcare system that doesn't just acknowledge family caregivers, but embraces them as essential partners in care. It looks like a tax code that recognizes that family caregivers contribute $600 billion annually to our economy without a tax break. It looks like workplaces that don't force people to choose between their paycheck and their loved ones. It looks like a direct care workforce that receives the wages, training, and respect they deserve. It looks like support services that reach every caregiver in every community, not just the ones with the means to access them. It looks like supporting the more than 5 million people under the age of 18 engaged in care. It means protecting caregivers from all walks of life. These aren't just aspirations, they're achievable goals that build on the momentum that we've created together. This is about people. It's about the daughter in Detroit juggling a full-time job while caring for her aging father. It's about the husband in Houston learning to be a nurse at night while providing care for his wife battling cancer. It's about that grandmother in Georgia raising her grandchildren while working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Their stories are our story. Their futures depend on our ability to strengthen and expand the common ground that we share. That's our charge today as we imagine what the future of care can look like and put a spotlight on the policy and culture change that we need to get us to that future. And tomorrow, more than 100 advocates, many of you in this room, will head to Capitol Hill, not just to educate members about the Older Americans Act, which is vital for supporting family caregivers, but to build bridges with policymakers and expand our common ground in support of family caregivers. The task before us is great, but in this room I see something remarkable. Advocates across aging, disability, and patient advocacy breaking down silos, researchers partnering with service providers, and caregivers bringing their lived experience to every conversation. This is what common ground looks like in action. Earlier this year, I joined advocates from across the caregiving movement for a retreat hosted by the Care Fund. On the wall of our meeting room was a timeline of the care movement that stretched back to the 19th century. It reminded me that our work builds on generations of commitment. Each victory, each policy, each new alliance is built on the last. This work has never been easy and it's never moved in a straight line. Sometimes the wind is at our backs and sometimes there are storms ahead. But at times like these, we must remember that success isn't measured only by victories, important as they are. It's measured by our ability to sustain hope, to strengthen our determination, and to hold one another in challenging times. This is what caregivers do every day. And their stories fill me with determination and hope. And we've built today's agenda around these stories. Throughout the conference space, you'll find storyboards and beautiful artwork, thanks to our partnership with Caring Across Generations, that weave together care experiences across a lifespan. I invite you to explore these powerful narratives, and our NAC staff is here to help you find them. These stories capture the experiences of caregivers, caregivers like my mom. I grew up watching her raise 3 kids while working a full-time job and caring for my grandmother who battled multiple chronic conditions. I remember the hard times, like when my grandma had her foot amputated because of complications from diabetes. My mom spent hours and hours of time that she didn't have navigating insurance denials and benefit applications. The first time I ever heard my mom use a 4-letter word was when she was on the phone with my grandmother's insurance company. Was not the last time. But I also remember the joy and the laughter. My grandma was never cooler than when she was giving us tips on how to turn corners in her wheelchair. The connection we formed during that time was enduring. My mom gave us that. Care gave us that. She invested in her mom's care, and she invested in her children's future and her grandchildren's future. My son, I often think about what will care look like for him? What will it take from him? What will it give him if he takes on the role of a caregiver for me or my husband? These are the stakes, and I've never been more fired up to deliver a more caring future for him and for all of us. So as we begin our work today, I want to leave you with the wisdom of civil rights and disability rights icon Judah Heumann, who taught us that change never happens at the pace we think it should. It happens over years and years of people joining together, strategizing, sharing, and pulling all the levers that they possibly can. And she was right. The caregiving movement needs you now more than ever. We won't back down. We'll show up for each other, and we'll expand our common ground together. Because that common ground, we find on it not just our shared challenges, but our shared strength. Not just our common hardship, but our common purpose. Not just our individual stories, but our collective power to create change. The future of care starts with us. The future of care is us. Thank you. And my husband just won $20 because I told him I wasn't going to tear up, and he said, I don't think so. And today's opportunity to take stock and to be together wouldn't be possible without the support of our funding partners. I want to recognize our cornerstone philanthropic partner, the John A. Hartford Foundation, who has been a tremendous champion for change across the care ecosystem. I also want to thank EMD Serrano, our visionary corporate partner, who has led a global movement to embrace care and caregivers in healthcare. And I want to thank our Care Champion partners, the Commonwealth Fund, Travere, Otsuka, Bristol-Myers Squibb, and Eli Lilly, and our advocate partner, Pharma. You can learn more about all of our funders on our website. And now I want to welcome to the stage an amazing collaborator, Rani Snyder, Vice President of Program at the John A. Hartford Foundation. As a powerful advocate for older adults and their family caregivers, Rani leads philanthropic efforts to transform our systems of care, ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to age with dignity. Welcome, Rani, to the stage.
Thanks, Jason. That was great. And look at this beautiful group. Gosh, I'm so glad that all of you are here. It's a really important day for all of us who care so much about caregiving and the people who are doing it. So Jason referenced, I'm Rani Snyder. I'm the Vice President of Program at the John A. Hartford Foundation. We are a nonpartisan national philanthropy. We happen to be located in New York City, but anywhere in this country that you are, we are too. We operate across the country. And we're really proud to be supporting today's second annual National Caregiver Summit. As we come together in our nation's capital, I know we're not the only country represented here because I see Canada over there. But let's capitalize on the opportunity to solidify, to safeguard, and ultimately to strengthen the momentum that has already occurred, that's been building, that Jason just referenced, to support family caregivers. The millions of spouses, partners, siblings, children, and friends, all of us, really, who provide care to older people, to people with disabilities, to our families and the people we love, and the direct care workers also who partner with them, or sometimes are them. Sometimes it's a twofer in that sense, are the backbone of care for this country. And all of them, I'm gonna stop saying them, I'm gonna say us. All of us need more support from every sector of this economy. And so, like many of you, our foundation really strongly believes in this. And for us, part of the reason for that is that our mission is to improve the care of older adults. So that's what we eat, sleep, and breathe, professionally speaking. And we organize our funding in 3 overlapping areas, and they are building age-friendly health systems, supporting family caregivers, it's one of our 3, and improving serious illness and end of life. And so you can hear the overlap in those 3 areas. The grants that we make advance the good work of organizations like NAC and their advocacy initiatives that push for policies and programs to better support caregivers. And we work hard to infuse caregiving into all of our grant-funded programs because supporting family caregivers is such an essential part of what we call age-friendly care. It's what we're trying to build all across this country. Personally, I'm in the midst of some of my own caregiving right now for my father-in-law who has dementia. I'm not his primary caregiver. My mother-in-law is his primary caregiver with the support of my husband and his brother and wife. And yet, even with all of the support that we have in this family on this topic, it's been incredibly challenging. And I'm watching my mother-in-law really struggle dealing with this for her husband, my father-in-law, who I love dearly. I also want to say, though, and Jason referenced this, how rewarding it can also be being there, being the person or the people that take care of someone in that time of a certain kind of need. And so I want to note that it's really important to celebrate caregiving and caregivers as much as we highlight the challenges that are real. Caregiving is a personal and a societal issue. And every person and every organization has a role to play in building better systems of care. In philanthropy, we do this in a variety of ways. So our foundation brought private dollars to augment the Administration for Community Living's efforts in the groundbreaking work to create the national strategy to support family caregivers, made possible by the Reyes Act that Jason referenced, that Trump signed and the Biden administration has been following through on since that time, truly bipartisan. We partnered really closely with ACL over the past 2 administrations to look for, and we really look forward to continuing that collaboration over time. We funded the National Academy of State Health Policy, NASHP, as a key partner to complement the federal elements of the national strategy with some of their state work and beyond. NASHP has provided technical assistance and has created so many tools and resources for different sectors, from public health to employers, like the ones you can find, if you want to look for them, on supportcaregiving.org. At this summit, I expect that we will hear about progress from federal agencies, as well as state, local, and also the philanthropic sectors. I hope you all have seen the national strategy progress reports from both ACL and from NASHP that have come out in the last month or two. With those reports now in our hands, we can push even harder for continued implementation and for more action. That's what we want. We want to see action. Our foundation and others as well, other partners, have supported some incredible advocacy work, which I know many of the people in this room are engaged in. That includes NAC's Act on Reyes campaign, which has brought us here today. Super excited about that. And it also includes an initiative called Together in Care. And that's a partnership between NAC and PHI focused on the intertwined policies that are needed to support both family caregivers and direct care workers. The Together in Care initiative itself has released an excellent policy brief and recommendations that we hope all of you will be able to use as well. We've also funded other projects like the Dementia Care Collaborative that had a big meeting yesterday. Their fall summit was yesterday, so there's a lot of action happening. In addition to other actions that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services took this past year to advance the national strategy, which Jason referenced, CMS released its first ever comprehensive payment model to support dementia care that is not only clinical, but also involves community care, also involves support for caregivers. It includes respite. So this is a really, really meaningful next step in our country's move to care for caregivers and people, in this case, who have dementia. The guide model itself is a game changer for people who are living with dementia and for their families as well. The collaborative that we fund on the guide work is supporting the spread of evidence-based models for comprehensive dementia care. We want to support those models so that the adopting sites that are providing guide services will use the best possible models and therefore can get positive results in evaluations for this pilot program to become permanent. They met yesterday, as I mentioned, and their work is very synergistic with yours in a variety of ways. So in closing, please look to your local, your state, and national philanthropies for support on caregiving initiatives. Our wonderful grant-making association, Grantmakers in Aging, has also been a champion and an advocate for the national strategy. They facilitate a family caregivers funders community that they've issued a new funders guide this past year, and their members, who are our friends and colleagues as well, are very interested in partnering with you and want to know what your needs are in their communities. And I'll just close by saying the John A. Hartford Foundation is here to do the same. Together, we are really looking forward to the opportunity to forge new partnerships, to raise up family caregivers, and to get all of us as caregivers the support that's needed in our communities. The need for our advocacy is not going away, it is only growing. And I'll highlight Jason's great notes about common ground. This is the time and the place to start that work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rani, and for weaving your personal experience and reminding us that caregiving is our common bond. And next, I'm excited to welcome to the stage Caroline Fisher O'Neill, Director of Alliance Development for Otsuka, a longstanding NAC member and corporate champion. Welcome, Caroline.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here this morning. My name is Caroline Fisher O'Neill. I'm the Director of Alliance Development for Otsuka's Government Affairs team. Actually, I wanted to start today with a quote, and considering my audience here, I'm sure this is not going to be the first time for many of you hearing this, but I think it's one that bears repeating. So as Rosalind Carter said, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who will be caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And I thought, this quote really reminds us of the universal experience and responsibility of caregiving. We are all in this together, and I think Rani put it well in kind of reminding to say all of us. That's why these opportunities to come together as a diverse group of stakeholders working towards driving change are so important. That said, I'd like to thank the National Alliance for Caregiving for this opportunity and for their leadership. So if we could give them a round of applause again. Otska is humbled and excited to be a partner among the highly regarded voices here today. We're a company committed to the health and well-being of those living with chronic diseases and see caregivers as essential in the patient's wellness journey. But caregivers also have needs, and those needs are often overlooked. We want to help to change that paradigm. As we know, data is an essential element of driving policy change. Otska recently supported several research projects to generate data that will hopefully help to move the needle amongst policymakers in DC and in the States. The first of those reports is a research from Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health, and the findings are very compelling. The report shows that 44 million caregivers in the US perform the equivalent of $875 billion worth of labor each year. That is unpaid family caregivers. This means that family caregiving is essentially the largest revenue generator in the world, greater than Walmart or Amazon or Apple. The second report I wanted to mention is a report that was conducted by Salary.com. It's entitled America's Unpaid Workforce. This research uncovers a startling revelation as well, and that is that if full-time family caregivers of those specifically with Alzheimer's or dementia were compensated for their daily tasks, their projected annual salary would soar to a staggering $110,000. So the fact that these contributions are so often overlooked is just not okay, and it demands immediate attention. Systemic reform is needed to re-envision healthcare and to safeguard the well-being of family caregivers and the loved ones that they tirelessly serve. This research shows yet again that caregivers are an indispensable part of our healthcare system, contributing billions of dollars worth of unpaid labor each year. As we consider this data, let it inspire action. It's time to invest in the well-being of those who selflessly invest in us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words and for the research that you're putting out into the world to shift the conversations and perceptions around care. So much is changing in the care landscape, including increased visibility of family caregivers across all aspects of society, from corporate boardrooms to Hollywood writers' rooms. This culture shift wouldn't be possible without storytelling. I know many of you have a story. That's why the National Alliance for Caregiving is proud to partner with WIDA on the production of Caregiving, a new documentary from executive producer Bradley Cooper. Caregiving will reveal the state and the stakes of care in America. And I want to cue a sizzle reel from this new documentary.
Until my father was diagnosed with cancer. My dad was somebody who I idolized. I used to dress up like him when I was a kid in kindergarten and get made fun of because I wanted to wear like a suit and a tie. And then to go from that to giving him a bath is quite a traumatic thing.
Everyone has a care story. Caring for our families is the most important and invisible work that we will ever do.
Do you think we look alike?
There you go.
Doesn't matter who you are, where you live, what you do, where you come from, you need care.
How you feeling this morning? You good?
And we have this invisible army who are essentially holding us all up as families and therefore holding the entire economy up.
Let me pat dry your face.
People are doing everything they can and more, and it's simply not sufficient because we need to have a recognition that care is a public good.
So my dad is actually a medically retired Navy SEAL, and now he's like helping me just get stronger.
I'm here caring for 2 sick people, which is definitely harder than anything I've ever done in my life.
There's just this simmering crisis. Everyone is burning out, whether it's the care worker or the family member. Everyone is under extreme duress.
I have reintroduced a credit for caring bill. It is for those that are caring for their loved ones.
We're trapped in a caregiving crisis, within an economic crisis, within a healthcare crisis. I want to change the paradigm.
Now we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to support all of our families and our caregivers too.
It really is up to us. All of us can help raise the banner for caregivers. That's why I'm excited to partner with WIDA and produce this documentary. Together, with your help, we can make a difference.
Love it. Watch out, Kim Burns. Bradley Cooper's coming for you. We're so proud to partner with Bradley and WIDA on this project. Now, before we dive more deeply into the power of narrative change, I want to welcome to the stage Sika Dunyoh, Director of Patient Advocacy at Travere Therapeutics, to help us kick off our next session. Welcome, Sika.
Oh, nice song. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jason. And good morning, everyone. As Jason said, I am Sika Dunyoh, and I'm Senior Director of Patient Advocacy at Travere Therapeutics. Travere is a biotech company exclusively focused on developing therapies for people living with rare diseases. At Travere, our dedication to people living with rare diseases, as well as their caregivers, is a lifelong commitment and integral to who we are as an organization. Like myself, many of our team members are rare disease patients, survivors, and caregivers themselves. For us, advancing research, developing life-changing therapeutics, and doing everything we can to support patients and their caregivers is personal. For that reason, we are proud to sponsor the Caregiver Nation Summit to convene stakeholders like you to have these critical conversations around the state of the caregiver experience. And now, I am pleased to welcome your moderator for the next session, Vicki Shabo, Senior Fellow of Gender Equity, Paid and Care Policy and Strategy at New America. Vicki?
Hey everyone. Hi, good morning. This is an amazing crowd, and Jason, I'm so happy to be here and grateful for the organization that you have strengthened and this crowd that you have brought together. This mic sounds like it's a little hot. Good morning. I'm so excited to be here with Ty Lewis and with Parvathy Krishnan to talk today about the relationship between storytelling and policy. Often, I will introduce myself. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior fellow at New America, which is a think tank here in DC. I've been working on advocating for paid family and medical leave, gender equity policies related to work and care, and policies that really affect all of us help to be able to both provide for our families and take care of our families for the last 15 years or so. And often as a policy person, we think a lot about numbers and facts and data and research and like making the right case. And often we lose the human element of stories, or we use stories in a way that like illustrate a data point, but don't really get to the heart of the matter, which is that everybody needs to take care of somebody at some point or needs to be taken care of. And these are the most human stories. They are filled with comedy, they're filled with drama, they're filled with suspense. Sometimes they're filled with sci-fi and things you can't even imagine. Sometimes they are fantasy, where we want to imagine a different reality. And all of these things ladder up to helping people make connections with one another, with helping people who do face common challenges to see their own lives reflected in other people's experiences, to forge common connections and bonds and fight for change together. They help people who are not facing these things understand other people's experiences and build empathy with others. And that can come through social media storytelling, it can come through Hollywood storytelling, it can come through journalism. But stories really help us understand the humanity that we all share and find common ground even with people that we think we are very different from. And that can ladder up to policy change. And that's sort of the trajectory we're going to talk about here today, is how do we use individual stories to form connections with other people who are similar to us and going through some of the same things? How do we help use storytelling to educate and inform other people in our communities and in our country and in the world? How do we use stories to inform policymakers? And how do we build momentum and understanding and pressure to fight for the kinds of policy changes that we need, whether we're talking about funding for medical research or health insurance or paid family and medical leave or paid sick time or caregiver credits or caregiver supports, and really building the infrastructure and the country that we need in order to care for ourselves and our loved ones and fight for the people and the causes that we believe in. So with that, this is like a really high chair for a short person. So I'm just gonna sit here on the edge of my chair for the next hour, riveted by these stories. But I'm really excited today to introduce the two folks that are here and also recognize the third person who's not here. Yosimar Reyes was supposed to be here with us on this panel today. Yosimar is a poet and a storyteller. He was also a caregiver to his grandmother, who unfortunately just passed away. So he wasn't able to be here with us today, but we're going to see some poems from him later. But we are here with Ty Lewis, who is a certified dementia practitioner and runs In Case I Forget Consulting, which is kind of cool. I feel like I need that too. And with Parvathy Krishnan, the founder and executive director of the Krishnan Family Foundation. And so we're just gonna have a chat, and then we are gonna see some poems from Yosimar, and then we are gonna open it up to questions. And so we're gonna spend about the next hour talking about stories and the role of story in community connection and policy. So with that, I am going to turn it to Ty to introduce herself, tell us a bit about the journey and how she got here, and then I'm gonna ask the same of Parvathy.
Hi, everybody. I feel like I'm just looking this way. Is everyone having a good time? Yes. Are you okay this morning? Yes? Yes? Okay. Because it's a caregiving conference, I don't want y'all to look sad. We are coming and we're going to have joy. So my name is Ty Lewis. I am the owner of In Case I Forget Consulting. I am a wife, a mother of two beautiful children. I'm what they call a sandwich caregiver. I'm stuck between taking care of two children as well as taking care of my mom. I am an author of a children's book, in case I forget, which is in honor of my mother and documents the journey of Jordan, which is my mom's last name, and her grandmother, and how she deals with her Alzheimer's diagnosis. And I am tasked with the beautiful just journey of taking care of my mother, Gertrude Jordan, who is in the final stages of Alzheimer's, stage 7A. And if you follow me on social media, you know she is a hoot. She is funny and she is resilient, and she's teaching me so much about taking care of a loved one, but yet still finding joy in the journey as she empowers and loves on and just, oh my gosh, she's just living this life out, even with the diagnosis. I started taking care of my mom after my father passed in 2021. And she came to live with me. She actually started living with me during COVID. And it has been a journey. I'm a crybaby, so if I cry, y'all excuse me, honey. Listen, bring out all of the tissue. I started taking care of my mother, and watching her decline has been gut-wrenching. It has been hard, but it also led me to start telling my story. And that's why we're here today. And I remember when my mom first got diagnosed, I was in every support group you can imagine. I'm talking about 70 support groups. And finally, I had to unfollow all of them because it was just all gloom and doom and death, right? Like, we're all gonna die, I know that, but please let us live right now in between. And so I said, I want to create something where even though people are diagnosing, even though we're caregivers, and even though we are in the middle of something hard, I want us to find joy in everything that we're doing. And somebody will say, well, Ty, how can you find joy when it's ugly? How can you find joy when your mom is not eating, or when you have to tell her something and she's asking questions over and over? Honey, it'll be all right. Just find joy in the little things, the fact that she's still here. And so I created my Instagram page, I am Gertrude Jordan. And it literally went from 319 followers, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Because nobody's paying attention to us. And I realized when you put your head down and you do the work, the people will come. And so we have literally blown up to over 100,000 followers, with mommy as the center and the main attraction. And it's been amazing, because people can see me and people call me a content creator. And I'm like, no, I'm here to do God's work. And so it's been amazing for people to follow us and see that, yes, I am at the forefront and my mom is at the forefront, but I am still relatable. I still have the same stories. I'm still struggling. I'm still going in the closet and I'm crying and I'm still broke, right? Because of last year, caregiving cost us over $90,000, and that was just caregiving. And yes, I run a business, but if you're a business owner, you know what that looks like, right? And my husband can't work because, you know, my daughters are all together lovely and have so many gifts, and we have to be there, but also taking care of my mom. So it's been a hard journey, but telling my story has brought light to our community. And it has shown so many people that I am seen and I am loved, even when no one else sees us, even when a bill may not pass. We still have each other, and we can lean on each other, and we can offer support. And I have been blessed and tasked with my special education background. One of the things that I've said is nothing is wasted. So I'm a special education advocate as well as assistive technology specialist for special education. And so using those tools, I've been able to create so many resources for children as well as caregivers in order to walk this journey. And it has been so amazing. And even though my mom will soon be leaving, it has been a blessing to serve, because that is what we have been put here for, to serve. Nothing more and nothing less. So, I'm Ty Lewis.
Very, very hard act to follow, but stay with me. My name is Parvathy Krishnan. I'm the Executive Director of the Krishnan Family Foundation, and I always like to start by saying I am here on behalf of my entire family. As you can see in the picture, those are my two children, Yash, my son, and Ira, my daughter. I call myself their spokesperson, but I am also here primarily as a medical mom. So how many of you have kids or have someone you've taken care of who's a baby? All right, well, I am not a parent only, I'm a medical mom, and I definitely want you to think a little bit more about why is she calling herself that. I can't just care for my babies like a normal parent would. My children have medically complex conditions, And because they just love, they don't like being basic. They love going out and, doing everything different. Between both my children, we have 5 different rare diseases. And if you didn't know about that, those are conditions that don't exist when you go to a regular doctor. It's been years since we went to the pediatrician. We have a slew of doctors from head to toe. But to give you a little more perspective, my daughter was born with a bang. She's a younger child. And she was born and she had extra toes and fingers. And we were like, that's so cute. We didn't know what that meant, only to find out that she had a genetic condition that we had absolutely no family history of. Her entire life with us, everything that you talk about with aging and dementia and all of that was our life with our child. She never walked, she never talked, she never could communicate with us. She was always sick. Most of her life was spent in a hospital. Unlike, not to take away from all of the amazing things that adults can get in support, we don't have rehab, we don't have therapists, we don't have support systems, we don't have nurses who come home to take care and help us and give us all of that break. This is us. We do it all. So we are doctors and we are nurses at home. I was running a small hospital at home between both our children, and this is our life, and this is chronic. This is not a one and done, but this is not the vision of parenting or family that we had, and all of that was changed with both our children. My son was 6 when his diagnosis came, and so at one point in our life, between both our children, they were in the same hospital, different floors, same floors, rooms next to each other. My husband would take our daughter to Cincinnati Children's. We live in North Carolina for geographic reference, and I would take our son to Boston Children's. And this was our life for the 4 years that my daughter lived with us. As a 3.5-year-old, we also had to make the decision to pursue palliative care and hospice for our daughter. And I specify this, and I want you all to just get another perspective of what life is for medically complex families, because these are not decisions people usually make. Your children are supposed to outlive you. Our society is not created for us to make these kinds of decisions, but we do, and many of us do. And these are decisions we have to make without any support, without any respite. We do this, and we continue to do this. Our daughter passed away 2 weeks after her 4th birthday. My son is 16. He is a 5-time cancer survivor. He is still here with us, but this is our life. It is a chronic condition. It's a genetic condition. To bring it back to our topic today, why does storytelling matter? Because if I didn't stand here and talk about our story, people would not know that families like this exist. People would not know caregivers like this exist, and people would not know children like ours exist. With each diagnosis that we were given, we were like, oh, okay, one more thing to learn. By the 5th, we were like, what more? Is there a genetic hall of fame that we can go to? Because why not? And in all of this, what I learned was that it didn't matter what our diagnosis was, our struggles were the same. My son is the only one in the world right now with his particular genetic mutation that causes this cancer predisposition that he has. And so when I asked the doctors, I was like, what does this mean? Where am I going to find other families? Where am I going to find other patients? Google's not helping. Everything is sad and morose, and he's going to die very young. And they said, we don't know. There's no one else that we know of in literature. Then we found out that there's 4 other genes that form this group of conditions that he has. And I said, okay, let's go, what do all parents do? We go to Facebook. And we were like, let's start a group. Today, that is the only group that exists for our condition, and we are connected to more than 50 families. And you probably are like, 50 families, that's nothing. That's everything to us. Because we went from being the only family that we know of having this crazy condition to now having 49 other families that have different kinds of cancers. All of my son's cancers are GI, but it doesn't matter. Other families may have a glioblastoma or a lymphoma or a leukemia. It does not matter. We are the only people who understand this genetic condition. We're the only people who know surveillance, and we are the only people who know what it is like to live with multiple people in the family with cancers. And so for us, the power of our community became so important, because now we work with our researchers and we work with other organizations to create awareness for genetic cancers, to create awareness for genetic testing, and to come up here and say, we matter. And so when you're in the Hill tomorrow and you're working on all of the amazing policies for everyone, I love my North Carolina folks, so I want to give a shout out to them, because they have included all ages and all stages in all of the work that they are doing. So I urge all of you to also think that way, because we are here, we are a very small population, but we really rely on all of you working with adults to help us. Wow.
Thank you guys for what you do and for sharing your story with us. I wanted to follow up on a couple of things. You each sort of talked about social media as a conduit to forming community in different ways. For you, Ty, it's this explosive sort of we are everywhere. There are 100 million caregivers in this country dealing with different conditions. Dementia is a huge problem that is getting more visibility, but is still seen as an individual.
Yeah.
I take care of my person issue. Parvathy, talked about finding a small community, but a community that was otherwise invisible. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how your story might have influenced other people or helped themselves be seen, like whether you've gotten feedback on that, and how what you've seen from others has affected you.
For me, forming my community, it's like what I would call the foundation to advocacy. And having the people there saying, no one sees me, your story is like my story. I often tell people, even you talking about your caregiving story, there are different paths to one road. And we're all caregivers, even though our stories are different. And so creating this community has allowed me to have partnerships with amazing companies and dispelling the myths of dementia. A lot of people say, well, why are you putting, your mom on social media? Why not? Mm-hmm. Because if I didn't, you wouldn't know about sundowning. You wouldn't know about hallucinations and delusions. You wouldn't know about in the end stages, how she wouldn't be able to hold her spoon, or even for me to give you strategies and you're saying, wait a minute, I can choose this over this. And these things are so simple. And so again, using my background to be able to educate and host classes for my community and other people who just happen to find us on social media has been such a blessing. And so it's allowed us to be seen. It's allowed me to do more work. It's allowed me to go to the White House. It's allowed me to be interviewed by Lisa Ling and everybody seeing our story. And they're like, wait, I thought you were rich. No, baby, no. And it's like, it's the how. It's showing people that even though you're seeing, because people say, oh, I thought you were getting paid by Facebook. No, please, please, okay? No, if Facebook was paying me $100,000, then maybe yes. But it's allowing people to see that I'm out here, but I'm really, really struggling. It's allowing people to see that I'm an influencer, but I still have to fight with IHSS in California. Mm-hmm. And it's allowing people to see me go fight with IHSS and then get a resolution. So they're like, yeah, go Ty. Our thing in our community is mount up. And so I'm like, I'm mounting up, and we are riding out at dawn. And so they see me and they get excited. And they say, Ty, you're just a regular person, because I don't care about the numbers, I'm human. And if they see me going to do that thing, if they see me going to advocate, they're like, I can advocate for my children. I can advocate for my dad, for my mom, for my grandmother. And if she doesn't have the resources, but I see it playing out on social media, then yeah, I can do that too. And they know I don't play. When I go and I'm going to advocate and they see me coming, they're like, oh, Ty is here. And there's a lot of like, this one story, somebody went to a memory care community. And they were like, do you follow Ty Lewis? And they were like, yeah, okay, we're gonna treat you right. So it's just like, they know, and I teach my community what to expect, how to navigate the caregiving experience, but also one of our just the whole theme is to lead with love. And so it's just been powerful. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I have a follow-up question for you, which was not in the script.
Oh, not you brand new and going.
But how do you balance like that public-facing, sharing, cheerleading, example making with what you need for yourself to just take care of yourself and your mother and your children and your family?
I don't. I don't. Literally, and I'm open and honest because I don't care. I had a breakdown the other day in the kitchen. I was like, oh my God, my life is ending. What is wrong? But I needed it. It had all built up. When my mother, when you see an educated woman, a teacher, a beacon in the community, one who is literally giving her life and taking care of people. I saw when just riding the car, I would be like, why are all these kids riding with us? And it would be my mother taking care of these people, my mother giving the clothes off her back. And when you see that, and being a role model to now I have to take care of her, do you know the trauma? Like, I can't even remember. I can't remember who my mother was 3 months ago. Like, literally it's speeding up because she's in the final stages. So I was just looking at pictures. I took her to the prom in September, and she was sitting up, and she was able to, if you watch, she does her little shake, and she can't even do, she's like hunched over in a seat. And I'm like, Mommy, what is wrong with you? Like, come on. And then then I have to like mount up, like I said, and be okay. But I had a breakdown the other day, and I was like, this is not right. Something is not wrong. Like, my mother should be taking care of me. I should be taking care of my mother. And so I can't balance it. I have 2 girls who are in the industry and who are dancers. And so trying to balance that, and then running a business, and trying to champion and encourage people and be this role model. And I was like, girl, you breaking down. That's like, I gotta go to the therapist. Regular, every week. And so it's hard to balance. So I pray every morning for grace. And one of the things that my mom said, I watched the old video, and she said, she calls me Dolores, which is her sister. And she says, Dolores, this is my road. This is the one that God has for me, and I have to walk it. Mm-hmm. And she really didn't understand what she was saying, but it was
profound.
Yeah, it was profound.
Yeah.
She said, this is my road. And so for that, I say, this is my road. And whatever comes my way, I still have to walk it. Mm-hmm. And so I balance it, and I pray every morning, God, give me the grace to be able to do what you have called me to do today. And what I can't handle today, leave it for tomorrow, because tomorrow has worries of its own. Mm-hmm. And so that ain't the answer y'all wanted, but I balance it.
That's all. I mean, this is authentic storytelling right
it's
here.
Authentic
so.
storytelling, baby. Yeah, I balance. So
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. Now, there's tissues if you need them. Parvathy, for you, you talked about how your son is the only one, and you were able to form this Facebook community that sounds small but is everything. Talk a little bit about what that felt like and what you've learned through that community, as well as what you've shared.
I think one of the most important things that our journey taught, much to your story, when we got a diagnosis and they told us your child's going to get many cancers, or that your daughter's going to be nonverbal, she's going to go blind, that's the trajectory of her condition, as any usual parent would do, I sobbed and cried, and I was just like, this is awful, why us? And so my very pragmatic engineering husband looked at me and he said, would you want someone else to go through it? And I was like, of course not. And then he said, cry all you want, get it all out of your system, because when we wake up tomorrow, these children have no one else but us to care for them. We don't have, none of our family members were even comfortable. Like, they would be worried coming to our house because they were like, we don't want to break your children. So yes, we had community support that really wanted the best for us, but they were like, we cannot handle it. Your daughter has oxygen and PEG, G-tube and everything, and your son has an ostomy and IVs. And so we didn't have someone who we could just be like, here, do you want to take care of our child when we go sleep for a little bit? And so one of the things we learned was that after that whole meltdown, we said, okay, there has to be purpose for this. Mm-hmm. There has to be a reason why we were given this life. It was not one we chose. It was not one that we were prepared for. No, we didn't have the strength. I was a clinical critical care dietitian at Duke Medical Center before I gave up my job to take care of my children, and no, that job did not prepare me for running a hospital for my children at home. It gave us purpose. And I always say my daughter only lived for 4 years, but her legacy continues on forever in the work that we do. Her blood and tissue samples continue to be in our research consortium, and so it's always going to help. And so it doesn't matter how long you live, it doesn't matter what you do in that time or how old you are, it's the legacy you leave behind. And my child's left behind a much more bigger legacy than if she had probably lived her entire life. And so for us, it started off as finding purpose, and then it morphed into, okay, now we have this. What do we do? Because, we're problem solvers. My husband's very technical. He's zeros and ones, and he's like, if this is a problem, how are we going to fix it? And so our advocacy actually started in our hospital system, where we found many issues that, we were the frequent flyers. We knew everybody in the ER staff, and they would wave to us. And my son started saying, this is my floor. And I'm like, well, not your floor, the hospital's floor. So we were that family. Oh, you're back again. Okay, here's your favorite room. That's where it started, because we saw a lot of systemic issues that we were facing. And so I said, this doesn't make any sense, and this is possibly one way to fix it. So we joined the Family Advisory Board. Then I extrapolated that to our community, where I said, we shouldn't be fighting for our children to get surveillance. The International Consortium, all of these amazing doctors have put together this plan that says, if you do this kind of aggressive surveillance, your child can live 5 more years. That's huge to us, because you'll catch the cancer really early. The biggest problem our families were facing was convincing medical practitioners to do this. And so there's a research consortium. There are publications that say this is what you have to do when you have this condition. However, there still continues to be a fight against payers and against your whole medical system. And so part of what we do is work one-on-one with families to say, okay, how do we empower you to go make your case? Because you know what? That empowerment that comes from within you will speak volumes, and it will not only impact the care your child gets, but you will be changing your hospital system. Because it's such an ultra-rare disease, our patients are spread all across the world. And so we have one family in Australia who would ask me something, and I'm like, okay, let's put our heads together. Who do we know in Australia? What can we do? And it doesn't matter what happens. We will now have a new system moving forward. And so a lot of it is just working and understanding, how can we create an impact that not only changes our trajectory, but can potentially have a ripple effect on those coming after you.
Yeah. I know. So again, not scripted, but you talked about teaching other people to be empowered, to advocate, to tell their stories. What are some of the top sort of tips that you have, that you've shared with others that you feel like have made a difference?
I think the number one thing I tell all rare disease families is, it's very easy to get caught up in our day-to-day. It's very exhausting. It's very, you go to the hospital and the doctor says, you know your child best. Okay, now I'm telling you this is a problem, and they're like, yeah, we don't see it. But I'm like, I do know my child best, and I'm telling you this is a problem. And so my number one, not advice, suggestion to families is, if you're going to a doctor's office, or if you're going to if you're in the hospital, look put together, because they value what you say more. So just, wake up, brush your teeth, comb your hair, get ready for rounds. As crazy as this sounds, yes, you've been in the hospital for 4 months, but you still want to look and feel sane. And so get up and do that. And then pick the one thing that the team, the medical team, the research team, whoever it is that you're talking to, pick one thing that is the most important thing that will help you today. And I do the same talk for the doctors' teams. And I tell them, I say, we come to you with 1,000,000 problems. What I really want you to know is, we're not expecting you to fix it all. We don't need your therapy. Like, I know you only have 30 minutes to give me. So just ask us, what's the one thing we can help you with today? And if you can fix that one thing for me, or at least get me to the next zone, that's all I want. And so always prioritizing what that one ask is extremely important for advocacy, because the 2-minute elevator speech is literally what I tell people to do.
Wow, that's such a good lesson for sort of all communication, I guess. What about for you, Ty? Sort of, how have you taken what you've learned from your Instagram and from social media and from one-on-one conversations, and sort of teaching other people how to advocate, or how to use story to move forward?
I often teach my community that you are your loved one's voice. And so I laugh all of the time, because when I meet virtually with mommy's doctors, they just sit there and they're like, okay, Ty, so we don't have anything to say, because you've told us everything, and we don't have anything to offer you. And it's not that they don't have anything to offer me, it's that I advocate for mommy so well that I leave them speechless and with nothing to say. And that comes from researching, that comes from knowing your loved one's diagnosis, that comes from walking in the room confident saying, this is A, B, C, D, and I have data. So I'm like, okay, let's just segregate this data. I have data, I have my mom's condition, I'm on the fast scale, like I know everything about mommy, so I just, here, I come with a folder, here you go. And so there's nothing that they can say, so I often tell my community, please advocate, please be your loved one's voice, please speak up. Don't, just like you said, you know your loved one better than the doctors know them. And you can't take away the medical degree, but you have the right to give, you know, your opinions about, and facts, not opinions, facts about what's going on with your loved ones. And I always tell them document. Make sure, you know, you have data. Make sure you're keeping a folder. Make sure you're keeping a timeline. Make sure that your loved one is on a schedule, and this is just me talking to the dementia community. Just make sure your loved one is on a schedule, because all of those things matter. And speak up. Always speak up. Always speak up. Can I just make one more point?
Of course.
I love what you said when I said preach about purpose. All of us in here, we're all caregivers, and from whatever background, and we're like, why is this happening to me? And you said this so beautifully, and you said, what is your purpose? I often tell my community members, I hate the fact that mommy has Alzheimer's, but I love the fact that I get to connect with you. And I love the fact that we are in communion together, and we are a community. Nobody can take that away from us. Like, legit, if you open up my phone, I receive over 200 DMs a day that I answer. Wow. Like, the community is unmatched. Like, they go to war. They're like, where do we need to meet? They were like, Ty, why are you out of town? Who's taking care of mommy? Y'all, I got a husband. Okay? Hey, he can take care of me. But they're like, oh, we were ready to come to your house and fight. You don't even know where I live. But purpose is not, why is this happening to me? But what is it doing in me? Mm-hmm. And so when you find that out, what is it doing in and through me? How is this making me more patient, more loving, enduring? Just all of these kind, compassionate, empathetic. How am I having the ability to be able to suffer long and well? And so we take away the, why is this happening to me? Yeah, we're gonna cry. Nobody understands, but also, what am I doing in the in-between? I always talk about the in-between. The diagnosis, and then the time my eyes close. When mommy leaves this earth, when mommy closes her eyes, I've had two privileges. One, to usher her into heaven, and number two, to be able to teach because of her diagnosis. That's my purpose. That's why I'm here, and to create resources for the community. So instead of saying, woe is me, just say, it is well within my soul.
Well, yeah. Thank you for, I feel like you both have so much wisdom to impart that goes well beyond your own journeys. And so that actually leads me to my next question, which is, how do you see your stories connecting beyond the community that you're speaking to now to a broader cultural conversation about care and caregiving? What do you hope that people who haven't yet gone on this journey or don't realize that they're on this journey can understand about the lives that you're living and the kind of supports that you need or that people like you need? And Parvathy, I know your situation is so rare, but there are people dealing, not to say that it's the same at all, because you've described how it's not the same, but there are people dealing with ill children, children with disabilities, parents with chronic conditions or acute conditions. How do you see your humanity and your struggle bound up with everyone else's in a way that brings power to a new understanding about the way that care shapes us and shapes a country?
I definitely want to preface that if you take all rare diseases and put them in one continent, it's the third largest country in the world, most populated country in the world. So we're not that small.
Okay.
And it's across all lifespans. It's not just children. 50% of rare diseases are kids, but that it doesn't make it any better. And so it's not that rare. And so while I know that some are much more prevalent in mainstream media, and rare diseases have this moniker like, oh, you're rare, you're off, you're odd. That's really not the case. The part where it's beyond our rare experience, it's beyond this one story, is that if you look around in your community, there are probably at least a half a dozen or more families like ours that are going through what we're going through. One thing that I would always encourage folks to do is to just, any work that you are doing in your space, just think, is this existing for pediatrics? When we are lobbying for something, how do we include that small, teeny tiny line that does, or remove a line that says above the age of 18 or above, for older Americans? Because we matter too. We were talking about financial toxicity yesterday. I mean, imagine the financial toxicity we as parents have if we've been in this life for more than 10 years. And there's no end to it. We will not leave behind anything for our children if they survive. Most of the work, the onus is on us to find treatments, to find cures, to find doctors, to take our children. None of that is covered in anything. Even an Uber card or a gas card wouldn't cut it, because we go from North Carolina to Boston every 3 to 6 weeks. And so people don't understand that it's much more complex. And so it doesn't matter whether you're in Washington State or in North Carolina, our needs are the same. We don't have trained nurses and nursing aides. I don't want to get any more training on how to take care of my child. I need someone to come and take care of my child so I can just sit for 1 hour or 2 hours or however long we get. And I think that is, I am sure an adult caregiver, I can't speak for everyone, would also love that respite.
Give me some respite, Lord.
Yes, we want, yes, nothing fulfills our life more than caring for our children and for our loved ones, but for us to sustain and for us to keep them out of the hospital system, for us to take care of ourselves. In our community, we also are at risk as parents. We carry the gene as well, but it's less, it's more aggressive in the children. But we are at risk for cancer. So for me, self-care would be going and getting a colonoscopy. Yeah. That would be my self-care. So if I got respite, just imagine the excitement I have to go get a colonoscopy. But I have to do that so I don't get colon cancer and I can still be alive to take care of my child. We don't even get respite for that. And so my biggest ask would be, please find a way. We can find more qualified nurses. We can find more nursing aides who will help families across the lifespan, specifically pediatrics, because we absolutely need their help. And my North Carolina folks will want me to say this, but at one point in my daughter's life, we were approved for 40 hours of nursing care and 20 hours of nursing aid. At no point in her life did we find someone for more than 16 hours. And it was not because we didn't want it. It was because there was no one there trained, willing to care for our child who was this sick. We need nurses and nursing aides to be known about palliative care, about quality of life, because we lost our nurse when she found out that we chose palliative care for our daughter, because she didn't believe that that would be the way to go and that we had given up fighting. And so not only did we carry the burden of making this decision for our child, we also lost the 16-hour respite that we had during the week. So better training, better support, better wages. For our nursing aides would hugely impact them to want to work so that they can help families like ours.
Wow. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that you said. A lot of people congratulate me on social media, like, Ty, you're such a hero. We are so glad you didn't put your mom in a nursing home. I'm like, first of all, it's the difference between a nursing home and a memory care community. And second of all, what we're not about to do is shame people who have to place their loved ones. And so a caregiver is still a caregiver, but people don't realize the amount it takes to have my mom age in place. And just like you said, to be able to, thank God our caregiver has been with us for 2 years, but to find a quality caregiver, I had to get a mammogram the other day, and I know that might be TMI, but I was happy. Just to be able to go out to the doctor, just to sit in my car to drink some Starbucks. But my husband has to stay with mommy, so it's either me or my husband, and my girls are old enough, or okay, I have to go to my part-time job on Tuesday, so to buffer it, my youngest stays home because my husband has to go drive Uber, and it's just like wait until the caregiver comes at 9:30. People don't see that part and the working parts of my life and trying to make it, and just I was like qualified for me to get I had to get a lawyer for IHSS, and first of all, Medicaid, and I know we're going to talk about Medicare later on, but Medicaid across the board, the qualifications, if I were still in Georgia, the look-back period, we moved to California 3 years ago, like the look-back period is horrible, and I had to fight with them in California, like, look, you said my mom has a cognitive disability, she should qualify due to that, and I called up there, and they were like, is you again? Yes, it's me. You know, yes, it is me. Okay, we're going to qualify. Yes, you better. But to fight and the social worker coming to my home and having to get the lawyer, and I'm like, you're only here 15 minutes. Like, how, if 15 minutes with the Alzheimer's person can be like 15 minutes when my mom is up shaking her behind, you're like, oh, you really don't need care, or 15 minutes when she's slumped over, so it just depends on the day. And I'm like, how can you gauge that? You can't. And so getting the hours, but the hours based on what they saw or determined, and them calculating hours in my home based on 4 people living there, but they're counting my children as one that preps meal. So my baby's gonna cook.
How old are your children? I don't think we...
7. My oldest just turned 17 last month, and then my youngest is 14. I'm spending 6, literally, I do meal prep for mommy, so 6 hours in the kitchen a day, well, for one day to prep for the week. When did my children do that? And so you can't, so they split up the hours, but anyway, just looking for consistent care and the caregiving and the fact that we don't have to struggle to find somebody to come in and all of the things, being compassionate and listening to other people's stories and just,
wow.
All of those
And how
things.
would you, and sort of thinking also through somebody who can't hire a lawyer or doesn't know what to do or can't be persistent, how do we find navigators for those folks too?
Our family went a little over a year without health insurance. And while other people may find that embarrassing, like when I tell y'all, I don't know how we made it from month to month. I don't know how we paid, like I don't look like it, I look good, but I don't know how we paid our rent, like creditors calling us and things like that. And so it's like, like, how am I getting the money? How is this working?
Right.
I don't know.
We don't have such things in the pediatric community. We don't have a system at all. We don't have navigators. We don't have anyone that's like, oh, we see that you've gone to the hospital 25 times this week. Do you want to consolidate your appointments? We're like, wow, that's wonderful. Yeah, we don't have such things.
Wow.
And not to have healthcare I had to tell both of my girls are dancers. And so I had to say, please.
Don't get hurt.
Don't do a pirouette. Just relax, okay, the teacher. And it's embarrassing because here I am like, oh, I'm the CEO, but you broke, you know? And it's just like, we don't have enough to sustain us. And so the reason why I was able to get the lawyers because my family is on Medi-Cal.
Okay.
And so, because our insurance prior to that, when we first moved to California, our insurance was $800 just for health and $300 for dental. And so now I'm like, yay to Medi-Cal.
Yeah, well, okay, so this actually pivots us to what should we be thinking about? We've talked a little bit, about respite care, about IHSS, about other policies. What do you wish in tying individual story to broader systemic change? what would that story look like in an alternative universe? If you were writing a fantasy or a sci-fi or some other story that centers you but sort of radiates out to a world that looks really different for caregivers, what would that look like? And what would you call your story?
I don't know. That policymakers would listen to us. And I often talk about that in the field of education. You can't sit at the building level and say what teachers need, because the teachers are with the students all the time. So you can't make policies about what caregivers need if a caregiver isn't on your board. And so talk to us. Come to these, caregiving summits and listen to what caregivers are saying, so you'll be able to say, oh, this caregiver needs money, so let's write that in the bill because they need money every month, every day. And so listen. The title of my story would be, the title of my story would be probably like Y'all Ain't Ready.
All right.
Maybe.
Coming up with that on the spot was pretty good, so that's all right.
Y'all ain't ready.
Yeah, well, and to the sort of differences in your story, it's like not just have one caregiver on your board or that you're listening to, it's like have multiple, because it seems like each caregiver's story is that caregiver's story plus lots of other people who aren't represented. Parvathy, what about you? What's your fantasy sci-fi
The thought
vision?
that comes to my mind is finding hope, because we have to find hope every single day from the time we wake up to the time we close our eyes, for whatever little time that is, finding hope in whatever we have for that day. But if we, so to give perspective, there are 10,000 rare diseases and only 5% of rare diseases have a treatment. 95% are only trying to live and make it. We need to just start thriving. It's not just enough if our children are alive or if we are here as caregivers. We just need to have some sense of community from the governmental perspective. Like, you're not orphaned, we still care about you, and this is how we're going to show it through action. We would love to have the same kind of support or similar support. The systems already exist. A lot of the systems already exist. Like, if you're giving transportation, if the county is giving transportation for seniors to go for dialysis, maybe you can now expand that program to take families who cannot travel or families who just don't want to drive and park and pay all that parking. The system exists. You just need folks to think out of the box and say, there is this group that also can benefit from it. And I think that the either work with the system that exists, or of course, if we had all the money in the world, I would love to say cure, but honestly, I just want my everyday to get better. I want my child to finish his day thinking, it was a decent day, and for that, his mom and dad need support. For that, he needs support. When he goes to school, he shouldn't have to think or worry about, I have missed 4 more years of school, but I don't have any support in the school system. I think we're more fortunate because our child is neurotypical and is able to walk and talk and is able to advocate for himself. But for my daughter, who could not do all of that, if we don't have support systems that not only support them when they're in school, but also support parents, how do we work if we have to go to 25 different appointments in a week? My daughter was 4 when she passed away. Other than an OBGYN, she saw every single specialist in the building, head to toe. Every single organ of her body or a part of her body was looked at. That's not normal functioning for a family. So I think understanding the ecosystem, understanding all of the programs that already exist in place, in communities, in public health systems, and making sure that it's inclusive for not just an age group, not just for a particular community, but making sure that it exists for everyone that has a medically complex person they're caring for. And then, yes, a whole lot of nursing support and a whole lot of nursing aid support. That would always be my first request, is because as parents, we don't want more training and recognition. I think the EHR, I don't know what it's actually called, but they were talking about it yesterday, so maybe Erin will be able to share more, but recognizing and acknowledging caregivers as part of the medical chart. And saying this kid has this, yes, we're parents and we're listed there, but having that specific designation that we are their caregiver, which would mean we can then start really counting, and maybe it'll be more than 10 million.
Right. Wow, that doesn't seem like a lot to ask. We're going to turn to questions in just a minute. But before we do that, as I mentioned, Yosimar couldn't be here with us, unfortunately, but he did share some poems. And so I think we're going to go to video of these poems, which are probably going to make us cry, and that's okay. And then we'll go to audience questions and then wrap us up. But I feel like this has been, thank you both really for sharing so many personal details and so many thoughtful reflections before we,
Abuela gets a fever. At her age, her body feels it can't deal. She calls me. I'm at a bar, trying to distract myself from the responsibilities of being a caretaker. I know it took a lot for her to dial. Abuela swallows her aches because she is mindful that I have my own life to live. Hey, I gotta go home, I tell my friends. At home, she is in bed. Sorry, she says. She doesn't know it's an honor. It's my duty. Her body is shrinking. I rub Vaporu on her back, her pecho, her arms, her legs. You're a good son, me dice. But it's not about goodness. It's about time, how fast everything is moving. It's about now, about savoring. It's life, this moment. Yo, rubbing Vaporu on this viejita that loves me. I touch her skin, memorize its texture. Very few people get the blessing of knowing a love so sacred. Querida abuelita, I want to thank you because I would not be here without you. I know sometimes you get sad because your body is not as strong as it used to be. You tell me, I don't want to be a burden, but you're not. You're a blessing. You're one of the most sacred things I have. It is an honor to be your caretaker. This country has been hard on us, and despite all the obstacles we have faced because we're undocumented, you remind me to have faith. I find it admirable how you always solve problems with prayer. It is your prayers that keep me protected. Every birthday you ask me, is there a visa for people like me? And I wish, abuelita, I could answer with more affirming news, pero no. For now, we have to be our own country. We have to make home out of our embrace. You are my country, abuela. I love your stories. How you tell me about where I come from. Remind me that should anything happen, I always have a place to return to. I did not come from nothing. I wish you rest, abuela. I want you to sit back and watch all the beautiful things you've planted grow. I want you to look back and see at all you helped build. But most of all, I want your legacy to be joy. I remember you told me, when I was growing up, I never imagined it making it this far. And yet, here we are, in tu casita. I know you long to return home, that you are a cage bird here. But if loving you means we fly back together, then let it be.
Yeah, that was a lot. So, and if you want to hear more, there is a card in your packets that will take you to a Lemonada Media podcast that he is on. So I'm definitely going to check that out. There's so much humanity in all of this. I feel like, yeah, even just as a parent of a relatively typical child, and you know, a only child of aging parents, and a daughter-in-law of parent-in-laws who are now facing dementia as well. I feel like all of this is, yeah, very personal, I think, to everybody here who has their own story. And before we turn to audience questions, I'm just curious, I mean, American culture is so individualistic. I mean, he just said we are our own country. You talked about, you know, sort of being one family and broadcasting from 300 people to 100 million people or whatever. I'm sorry, I just probably overstated your number. 100,000.
100 million.
I'm taking the audience by like 10.
I wouldn't be here. No.
Yeah, I think you'd be really famous. You know, how do you think about breaking out of this individualistic culture, thinking about I and me and my household, to telling a broader story of us?
For me, I was always raised like that. So it was always community where everybody is at your home. It was always grandma, all family together. And so I live by community. That's the only way you're going to last. That's the only way you're going to make it. There is no I, it's always we. And so because that is my foundation, that is how I project everything that I do. It's not I am in this, it is we are in this. And how can I help you? I think if we move from selfishness, and I often tell my girls this, it's not about your flesh, what you want to do, it's about other people. When you learn how to serve others, that is how you become great. You become the least of these before you become elevated. And so it's the servant piece. And in that servanthood, that's where you find community, because it's me grabbing your hand and saying, baby, I'm with you. You know, I got your back. How can I help you? I think, just in closing, one of the most profound things Mommy would say every morning before she began her battling, stage is she would wake up in the morning, and this would be the first thing she would say after she would say, hey, Dolores. My name is not Dolores. But she would say, God, what is it that you will have me to do today? And it took it off of her, me, to what is it that you want for humankind, for mankind? And how can I serve the least of these? And I listened to her say that every morning, and that became my thing. Yeah. Like, what is it that you will have me to do today? Not what do I want to do, because if I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be serving my community. What is it that you would have me to do so that I can be the best in it, so that I can walk low and serve well? And when you shift the trajectory of your thinking from I to we, baby, you're gonna be bad. Okay? So, all right.
I am an immigrant, and so when I came, we find people, we have to find our home, we create our own life, we create our own home, we come from another country, but also growing up in another country teaches you the amazing things this country can offer. My kids would not be alive, or would not have been alive as long as they are or they were, if we didn't live here. So always remembering that, always remembering how can we now translate that to others. When you work with international organizations, it really puts things in perspective. We're fighting for gene therapy, and they're fighting for cholera medicine, and you're just like, oh my God, like where's the equity in this? So I think a lot of it comes from always remembering that, yes, you are one person, but that one person can make some change. Tomorrow can still be better, but today is still there. And so as long as you make something out of your life today, if that is holding someone's hand or buying a Starbucks or talking with a family that's going through something devastating, and you're just like, I can't fix it, but I'm here for you, changes that narrative. Because like I said, we're a very, very small community, and until we found that community, we were all just nomads walking around saying, no one understands us, no one knows about our family, no one understands my child. And so I think as the human race, we usually want to be a part of a group. We want to be a part of a community. And so thinking, there's no barriers and there's no borders to this feeling. Caregiving is that one thing that is the most basic of the human race. And so I feel like that now becomes our community as a whole.
Thank you so much. We have about 10 minutes for questions, 8 minutes for questions. So if there are folks in the back with the mics, if you can just introduce yourself and say where you're from, also, that would be great. Back there.
Ellen Kirknell, and I'm from Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, and we have a caregiving program to support family caregivers. Your strength is amazing. And a lot of what we focus on is living out your values. You're not always caring for someone that you love. You're lucky enough to do that. But for those who don't, focusing on what your own values are and how you want to live that out in your life. I think that the positivity is really fantastic, crucial on the one hand. On the other hand, I have to say that the idea of hospital at home, which the insurance industry is moving toward, scares the hell out of me. Because I know that caregivers are so stressed already, and the idea that somebody can have a hospital in their home is freaky. And I know that it's all based on money and profit. So I'm just wondering how to bring those two disparate ideas together in terms of advocacy. Any thoughts that you have about how caregiver stories can be captured and utilized to inform people who are making these decisions about people giving up what they need to give up in order to create a hospital in their home? Thanks.
I'm happy to answer.
That's kind of like a hard question. It's hard.
I can go first.
Aging in place, which mommy is doing, people don't understand the sacrifice, which you said. We give up a lot. And so mommy has the hospital bed, and so on the toilet, the shower seat. And so you start to see all of these things come in your home, and you're like, what is going on? Am I equipped to be able to do this work? And so now mommy's on palliative care, and when I get home, I'm calling hospice. And we know hospice doesn't mean death, so no, my mama's not about to die. But it's hard. And so this is what I always tell people, what do you have the capacity to do? And so that's where my narrative always comes from. Do you have, we have it because I have my husband and my children, and it's just us. And we're still tired. Like, if you catch me on a day, I'm asleep about 5 o'clock, and then there's some melatonin in this daylight savings time. I don't know what it is, but so what do you have the capacity to do? And we all have to be honest with each other. Can your loved one age in place, or do you have to place them in a memory care facility or a nursing home or skilled facility? What do you have to do? And so then contacting your local agencies and having conversations with them and what that looks like, as well as money. Because one thing I found and didn't know about IHSS is you can't do palliative care and IHSS together. What?
You lose it.
Excuse me? And so what am I supposed to do? And so if I have this organization, I can't have this. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'm gonna keep your mama at home, but you can't have this. So it's a hard conversation to have. The hospital at home, we're just determined to do it. It doesn't matter what we sacrifice. And when I tell you we're sacrificing a lot right now, if y'all knew what I gave up, you'll be like, whoa, how she look this good up here. And I'm gonna keep saying that because I want y'all to tell me I'm cute.
You're so cute. Parvathy, what about you?
To be very honest, what you are projecting as your nightmare is our reality.
Yes.
We already do it at home, and we don't have any support. The one story that comes to my mind is, at one point, my daughter had 2 central lines. Sorry for guys who don't understand what that is. 2 central lines of PEG, breathing, concentrator, cough assist, pulse ox. She had all these IV fluids going, and this was her normal healthy day. And my son at the same time had an ostomy that was leaking all the time because he was 8, and he also had a central line, and I was giving him IV nutrition that we would be connecting at home. My daughter fell sick and we went to the hospital, and the long story short, she was supposed to get antibiotics every 4 hours. And the medical team thought that they were so happy to come and tell me, you can take her home. All you have to do is give her these antibiotics every 4 hours. And I just looked at them and I said, what? And they said, yes, absolutely. You do IV nutrition, you do all of this. It's so simple, it's so easy, you don't even have to worry about it. Now knowing this is a hospital, we're frequent flyers, like we're business class people at that point, right? They knew about our family. They knew about both our kids being sick. They knew about us not having any support. My husband was working full time because we had to have his insurance. And so I looked at them and I said, no. And they said, what do you mean no? We will train you. We will empower you. We know you can do it. And I said, I am scared I will kill one of my children if I have to stay awake every 4 hours to do this. They did not even get it until I put it to them that way. So what is a nightmare is currently and has been the reality for medical caregivers for children, medically complex children. And so I urge you all to think of it that way, because when you do advocate for nursing pay and all of this, just remember this is our reality. And this is what we live through, not just after we've lived our life, but our entire life with our children.
Wow. It's like, yeah, where do you want empowerment? Where do you just want somebody to take care of this for
Give us a
you?
break. And understand the system and understand the process that caregiving looks very different for different families. And just, you look at me and you assume I'm educated, we have insurance. Not once did anybody ask us, do you need Medicaid? Not once did anybody ask us, do you need Cap C? We would have loved to know all of that, but we were not asked all of that because my husband was working and we had insurance. And so understanding cultural differences, barriers, in our culture, we take care of our people. That's the norm. You take care of your old parents, but we were never told, we never saw people taking care of sick children.
Right. You never thought you would be here.
So.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more quick question and some quick answers.
Hi, my name is Megan Newald. I'm here from Sherm Foundation, and I'm the program manager who manages caregiving for the workplace and caregiving equity. And I'm curious for your all's perspective on what employers can do to help carry the burden that you're facing, or if there is anything that employers can do.
I work part-time for Debbie Allen as a literacy specialist. And I love her. And I call her name because I want to use just her as an example. She's an amazing example of what to do. And so I work as a literacy specialist for her middle school. And one of the things that I said is I went from 2 days last year to now only doing 1 day. And I said, my family comes first. Mommy comes first. And so if employers can understand we need more paid time off. We need you all to understand that, especially in my situation, 1 day can be good and the next day can be horrible. Like even when just as an influencer, and I keep doing this, with content, like partnerships, I tell them, while I understand you're paying me and we have a contract, my mother comes first. And you have to understand that I will always choose her over you. And so as an employer, and this is just me, Ty, I will always choose my mother over a job because we're gonna make it anyway. We're gonna be blessed. Where people are gonna take care of us. And so employers can have more compassion and capacity, empathy, and understanding to say, it's about caregiving. And so now, how can we kind of juggle the schedule? Can you work from home? Because we learned during COVID, you ain't got to come in the office. No, you don't have to come to the office. So what can I do to help you? And it goes back to the servant mode. What can I do to serve you?
My husband did leave his job for 15 years because we had amazing insurance. So just giving insurance for employers that, especially for families like ours where we had to go to various states to get care. So making sure there's insurance availability that includes all of that without waivers and, way too many pre-authorizations. So I think from a practical standpoint, that would be great. We also had he had a very understanding boss that understood that if he had to go to Cincinnati Children's, he had to go to Cincinnati Children's, but that's not always the case. And that's not the reality. I quit my job because I worked in a hospital and I cannot tell them, sorry, I'm in the hospital, so I can't, the system is not created to support jobs where I cannot work from home when I'm in a hospital and I have to go there and see patients. So I think that understanding when you don't have a front-facing job like that, maybe including additional holidays or days off that you can take for if there's an established criteria for medical caregiving, then I think that would be hugely impactful for families like ours.
So I'm going to take moderator privilege here to also answer this question and say that we have to get out of a system of people just being dependent on their employers. And I think what employers can do is advocate for public revenue that goes into the programs that are going to support paid family medical leave, part-time work and benefits, respite care, the kinds of investments that we as a society need to make life tenable for you, your loved ones, and for all of us, given that just 27% of workers in this country have paid family leave at all, and that the people who are most wealthy and paid the best are 10 times more likely than the lowest paid workers, but that's still 50% of the workforce that doesn't have paid family leave. So yes, I think that is an important point here, and it is why story connects to policy. So with that, we are going to wrap, but Ty and Parvathy, thank you so much for sharing these stories. They're so personal and they're so emotional, and thank you for doing the labor both in your homes but also here as well. Thank you.
Joy and sharing your strength with us and reminding us about the power of storytelling. And I know I'm leaving here with a sense of optimism, but also urgency.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Thank you for that. We're going to head into a break. I do want to give each other, I'm sure many of you see your stories reflected in the stories on the stage. And you also are bringing strength and sacrifice to be part of this conversation today. So thank you for being in the room. With that, take this break, utilize it. We'll come back at 11:05 for a conversation with Dr. Meena Shashramani, the director of the Medicare program, around how we can better strengthen Medicare in support of family caregivers. Thank you.